For many of us writers, we like short fiction, to read it and to write it. Some stories just don't need to be sweeping epics. In fact, they're better if they're shorter. So what is it? A short story? A novella? What do we call these stories with lower word counts? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm MK Williams, an author and independent publisher. I love sharing my insights about all things books and publishing with you. Before we get into the details about today's topic, don't forget to hit subscribe. You'll be notified every week as I put out new videos about publishing, making a career of being an author, and now being a mompreneur. So I love to read short stories from my favorite authors. I think it's a really great way to connect more with their work and kind of pass the time waiting for their next full-length novel. And I also like to write short stories. Not every idea I have is good or even novel-worthy, and some are about the length of a short story. So let's dive in with the different fiction lengths. Now, some of these definitions come from Reedsy, so I'm going to be linking below with references so you can check those out. Now, Reedsy defines a novella as 17,500 words to about 40,000 words. A novelette as 7,700 to 17,500 words, and a short story as less than 7,500 words. They didn't really define what that 7,600 words would be, so that's kind of amorphous. Maybe it'll just scooch down to the short story category. Now, for those of you looking to read short fiction, more major retailers have a category for short fiction or for standalones or anthologies, so it's really easy to find. For readers who need to close out their end of the year TBR goal, short stories are a lifesaver for you, right? If you had a goal to read 50 books this year and it's November and you're like, I'm not gonna be able to read 8 more books this year, but I can read 8 short stories. It's a really great way to do that. And again, I just love to connect with new authors, or maybe I've heard a lot about an author, but I'm like, well, they don't really write in a genre that I usually enjoy. If they have short stories, that's a good way to check it out and be like, oh, wow, maybe I really would like their longer stuff before I commit to a really long book. Now, for authors, we have different reasons for writing short stories. Now, one is that the story just doesn't need to be a full novel. 2 could be maybe we're writing a side story to offer as bonuses for our subscribers who want more from the world that we've created. We can give them that extra story in exchange for a newsletter sign up. Yay, everybody wins. Now, some authors will also write short fiction to sharpen their craft. And there are also literary magazines that will print short fiction that people can submit to. Now, when I was looking to submit Interview with a Van Lifer to some literary magazines last year, I saw a lot of submission requirements in the 5,000 to 6,000 word range, but then they had a category for short fiction that extended up to 10,500 words. So every magazine is going to differ on their category definitions, so always read that fine print, and obviously they have different audiences, right? So you wouldn't submit a romance short story to a science fiction literary magazine unless it was like science fiction romance or something like that. Like, look at what they're looking for. Now, speaking of some of my own short fiction work, today's video is sponsored by Escaping Avila Chase. Escaping Avila Chase is a story about FBI agent Trevor Hobertson, who's having the worst week of his life. Not because a hacker he has been tracking slips through his fingers, but because his ex-girlfriend with an axe to grind is releasing a new book. Try as he might, Trevor just can't escape the feeling that she'll be airing all her grievances in her not-so-fictionalized tale. Who is Avila Chase exactly? She's a femme fatale with creative license, and she's sharpening her pen just for Trevor. In this literary short story, we get a front row seat to Trevor's aching paranoia. Is Avila really after him, or is this all in his mind? A novella that will leave you haunted, Escaping Avila Chase provides the reader with an uneasy feeling as Trevor revisits his memories with Avila across the city of Philadelphia. A psychological character evaluation, Escaping Avila Chase is a carefully constructed literary novella with a narrator you just love to hate. This short story is rich with imagery and is a book for bookish people. Read this novella today and find out if you too can escape Avila Chase. Now, is there a market for short fiction? Yes, there's absolutely a market for short fiction. It isn't going to be as big as some of the other genres, pun intended, but it exists. Maddie Dalrymple, a longtime friend of this channel and a phenomenal writer, has a book and an entire podcast episode all about leveraging short stories for your author career. I'll link to both below. So her book is The Short Tack, and again, her episode of the Indie Author podcast that she hosts is below, so you can check that out too. So, do you read short stories? If so, please link your favorite one below so I can check it out. Do you write short fiction? If so, what tips do you have for your fellow authors? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and maybe hit that new shiny thanks button. That lets YouTube know that you're getting value from this information, and then they can get in front of other authors, like us. Now you can get back to writing your short story.